Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is Improving Your Mailer Scorecard. And this is one of a continuing series of educational webinars from WindowBook. Submit your questions. One is to click on the raise hand icon that's located on the GoToWebinar console that's on your screen. And that's our indicator that you've got a question to ask, and then we'll unmute you during the Q&A session. The other way to submit a question is to type your question into the questions area, also located on the GoToWebinar console. And then click the send button, and then we'll be able to read and respond to your question during the during the Q&A session of the webinar. If you are using your computer speakers to access the audio for the webinar today rather than the phone, you may wish to close out of any unnecessary applications running on your computer, and that will help to optimize your audio quality. And our last housekeeping item, we are recording this webinar as we do all of our webinars, and we'll be posting that to our website within the next few days, so you'll have access to it if you would like to refresh yourself on the content or if you'd like to refer it to a colleague. And I'll give you more information towards the end of the webinar on where exactly on the website you can locate that recording. All right, that wraps up our housekeeping, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about improving your mailer scorecard data. So we're going to be talking about some of the validations that Postal One performs and the error thresholds for those. And then we'll talk about some of the more common mailer scorecard errors and some of the best practices for using your mailer scorecard data. And most importantly, we'll talk about using that mailer scorecard data as a quality assurance tool and about some other proactive software tools that are available that can help you improve the quality of your mailing processes and thereby improve your mailer scorecard results. Then we're going to turn it over to Mary, and she is going to be demonstrating some of these proactive software tools that are available from WindowBook. And then we'll wrap it up with that Q&A session. Now, you've probably all seen this. This is I think this is from one of the guides from the Postal Service, but this is for the mailer scorecard validations. And the quality measurements focus on 4 key areas: intelligent mail full service, move update, e-induction, and seamless acceptance. Now, the last 2 are measurements that only occur for mailers who participate in those programs. But since the Postal Service is going to be mandating seamless acceptance in 2021, it really becomes something that everybody needs to pay attention to. For intelligent mail full service, the Postal Service verifies a number of things. They'll check that the mailer ID of the piece, handling unit, and container, such as a pallet. The verifications check that the MID is present and that it's a valid MID. The service type ID, or STID, is also verified to ensure that it's present and that it's valid for the class of mail and the service level of the mail piece. The by-for validation checks that the mail owner and mail preparer are properly identified in the EDOC. Now, these entities can be identified by MID, by CRID, or permit information, and there's a specific order of precedence that the Postal Service uses. And the verification also checks for the intelligent mail barcode uniqueness of containers within a 45-day period. Now, also verified as part of that full service validation is the barcode uniqueness of the handling unit and on the mail piece. It also verifies for the entry point data for both the handling unit and container. And if the mailing is part of a co-palletized mailing, that there are no trays and sacks that are not linked to a pallet. Now, the important thing to keep in mind with these verifications is that the validations check both the data on the mail piece, or in some instances, the containers, the handling units and containers, and in the EDOC to make sure that there are no conflicts and the information being verified can also be populated in multiple fields in your mail.dat file. And that's where some people get in trouble. So this means that your quality assurance processes need to account not only for the presence of the data and that the data is correct, but that it's correct on both the mail piece or handling unit or container and in the EDOC, and that there's no conflicting data between the mail piece and the EDOC or within the multiple fields inside of the EDOC. Undeliverable as addressed mail is a very expensive problem for both the Postal Service and the mailing industry, so they also perform verifications for move update processing. If scans of the mail piece barcodes indicate that the address has a change of address record on file that's between 95 days and 18 months of the mailing date, and the address has not been updated, that is flagged as an error. For mailers participating in e-induction for streamlining the acceptance and verification of drop-shipped mail, there are additional verifications. Validations include checking to make sure that the scanned pallet barcode can be found in the EDOC, that the pallets have been paid for, and that there are no duplicate pallets. The verifications also include misshipped containers, in other words, pallets shipped to entry points other than what is indicated in the EDOC. Other verifications include that the entry point discount claimed is correct for the class and processing category of the mail, and that the zone discount, if applicable, is correct. And mailers who participate in seamless acceptance, which of course is going to be pretty much all mailers when the mandate goes into effect in 2021, also have specific verifications performed on their mailings. And undocumented pieces is probably the most familiar and probably one of the biggest areas of concern. Now here, the Postal Service verifies that the barcode on the mail piece can be tracked back to the EDOC that's submitted. Other seamless acceptance verifications include the delivery point data, nesting and sortation, postage, weight, mail characteristics, and barcode quality. Now, the most common Mailer Scorecard errors fall into a few categories. These include by-for errors, where the mail owner, mail preparer, or EDOC submitter data is invalid or incorrect. Now, keep in mind, this data appears in multiple places in the EDOC. So sometimes the correct data is in place in one field, but conflicting or incorrect data appears in another field. This information can consist of MIDs, CRIDs, or permit data. Another common error is incorrect or invalid STID information. It needs to be correct for the mail class and service level, but it also needs to correspond between the STID that's on the mail piece barcode and the STID that's in the EDOC. Undocumented piece errors occur when the Postal Service scans the mail piece barcode, but it can't be tracked back to any EDOC submission within the past 45 days. Now, there are many causes for this type of error, including re-pre-sorting of files and generation of new mail.dat files with new intelligent mail barcodes that no longer match the intelligent mail barcodes that were printed on the mail piece. And surprisingly, even though that move update requirement has been in place for many years, there are still many old mailing lists being used that have not been processed through the proper address hygiene tools. The important thing for mailers to understand with regards to the Mailer Scorecard is that it should be viewed as constructive feedback on the quality of your mailings and not just as a means for the Postal Service to inflict penalties. The data is really intended for you to use in a proactive manner to help mailers understand how their mailings measure up against these verifications and use that data to spot trends and pinpoint issues before they become assessable errors. So, of course, the best way to do this is to monitor your scorecard on a daily basis. Now, that helps you become very familiar with the reports and the data that's on those reports. It helps you to more easily spot trends that are happening and to really understand what the data is telling you. Now, if the information on the reports is confusing or if you're not sure what it means, ask for help. Help is available from the Postal Service, and many mailing software vendors also can help you understand your Mailer Scorecard results. Now, once you start monitoring your Mailer Scorecard daily and understand the reports and the data, Then it's time to implement some best practices to utilize all this data to your best advantage. So you want to take some time to assess your mailing workflow and identify opportunities to optimize that flow, to automate, to reduce human error, and incorporate quality assurance processes. Part of this analysis should be routinely checking your mailing software settings to make sure that they're optimized for your mailings. And this is especially true when there are changes to regulations or prices. You should also take some time to improve the interaction and communication between the pre-sort, production, and post-pre-sort areas of your operation. Oftentimes, making simple changes in one area can greatly improve the quality or productivity in another area. To prevent undocumented pieces, but also to provide solid documentation in case of disputed assessment invoices, it is key that you develop a detailed log that outlines the creation of your unique Intelligent Mail barcode assignments. Also, I should note here, and this is not on the slide, but you should be downloading your IVMTR data on a routine basis and storing those in tables. Now, this may seem like a lot of work, and it is, but if you are faced with a huge assessment invoice, you will be very grateful that you took the time to implement this log and to save these tables. Now, you also need to keep in mind that undocumented piece errors may not be your error at all, but rather an error on the Postal Service side, or because of another mailer inadvertently using your MID or CRID data. Now, in these cases, the burden of proof, unfortunately, is still on you. So having this solid trail of how your Intelligent Mail barcodes were assigned can be invaluable. Also, part of your improvement process should be walking through your entire process end to end to pinpoint areas for improvement. Then create a roadmap to attack these areas of improvement. And lastly, you should implement routine audits to make sure that all of your process improvements are being utilized correctly and routinely. Now, there are many tools available to help you be more proactive with your quality assurance, and WindowBook offers many of these tools, and Mary will be showing those to us in just a few minutes. For example, we have our Your Score that I mentioned. You've got you're eligible for a free 30-day trial of that software, and that automatically grabs your Mailer Scorecard, so you don't even need to think about getting that information. It's automatically delivered to you every day. We also have a tool called DAT PreCheck, which allows users to validate mail.dat files right from the pre-sort process before you go into print production or submit your files to Postal One. This allows you to catch issues with the by-for data or MIDs and CRIDs, STIDs, and it also checks to see if your labeling list data that you used in pre-sort is up to date. And most importantly, it allows you to do this early on in the process. We also have another tool called DAT Mail Prep that's also used to validate mail.dat files, and it's also extremely valuable to troubleshoot any mail.dat issues and communicate those issues back to the provider of the file. WindowBook's post-pre-sort solution, DatMail, is another tool that helps ensure quality. Users can validate their mail.dat files on import, but also before exporting to Postal One to check for errors. And there are many flags built into the software that prevent users from accidentally making edits to the mail.dat files that can cause errors. There's also a utility called the Postal One Customer Data. This helps ensure that the correct by-for information is used because it's directly from Postal One. And recently added is the Undocumented Piece Audit Report. This allows users to download their undocumented piece barcodes from Postal One, that's the IVMTR data that I was talking about earlier, then import that file into DatMail and run a report that provides details regarding the job that was impacted and the possible reasons for the errors. And again, this can be invaluable in researching those errors and to dispute assessments with the Postal Service. And we also have WB Scan Essentials, which is part of DATMail. Now that is primarily designed as a finished mail pallet inventory and trailer manifesting system, which is a separate module. But we've included the scanning portion of that utility, WB Scan, and that allows users to scan mail piece barcodes or handling unit and container barcodes to ensure that they tie back to the correct mail.dat file. And again, this can be invaluable in helping to prevent undocumented piece errors. All right, so now that we've explained a little bit about the importance of monitoring your Mailer Scorecard daily, using that data proactively to your advantage, and implementing some best practices to improve your mailing quality, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Bush. She's one of our professional services specialists. She's got many years of experience in the mailing industry. She is going to give us a high-level look at a lot of the tools that I just mentioned to help improve your Mailer Scorecard. So Mary, go ahead and show us how all those cool tools work.
Thank you, Monica. Well, I didn't want to pull this up right away, but of course this is an example of an assessment. And maybe this is a good starting point, because when you see the dollar amounts and when this starts to become a reality, you're going to wish that you would have had all these tools in place prior to getting this assessment. I'm going to start with pre-offer that Monica talked about, which is your score. So again, that assessment can be pretty staggering if you don't have the correct solution and tools in place. So starting with your score, as Monica had mentioned, gets delivered every day. It's color-coded. No energy needs to be exerted, going out to the gateway, logging in, pulling it down. And we talk with a lot of people, and believe it or not, right, the busier you get, some things kind of fall off your plate because there's more and more priorities to take up that open space on your plate. So the scorecard, unfortunately, is one of those things that kind of falls to the wayside. Having your score delivered to you or a team ensures that somebody is paying attention. And if it's not you that has the time to look at it today, maybe it's one of your team members. So here, green, no issues, everything is fine. If delivered and it's yellow, so we even draw your attention to where that threshold is that you're about to exceed. The reports are attached, so you can look at the previous month, this month, and everything that you need is in there. And lastly, dun, 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 red. So now you've exceeded the threshold or thresholds, whichever it might be. And once this happens, then you've got your assessment. So I hope this kind of resonates. And if you're not the person that has to look at that scorecard, or maybe there's nobody in your organization that's currently looking at that scorecard, having this free offer, you definitely want to take advantage of it. So it will definitely improve, and again, make a little bit more room on your plate. So there's a lot to cover: MIDS, CRIDS, seamless, e-induction, buy for. There's just so much that you have to worry about. But if you've got the correct solution, it does make it a little easier. And I wanted to point this one out to you because Monica had mentioned that we do a validation at the time that you're importing a job. And I have to remember to start showing this more often because it is important that if you've imported a job and those barcodes have been used within that 45-day period, what makes us unique, because we're logging those barcodes into a SQL database, we can warn you at the time that the job is being imported that, hey, you're duplicating these barcodes. So this is the first level of defense to let you know that, Houston, hey, we've got a problem. Instead of then uploading this job, and again, impacting your scorecard, we're giving you a heads up early on in the process. In addition to that validation, I'm going to scroll down here and we'll find an appropriate. Oh, this in itself is really cool too. See the way all of these are grayed out? So this would actually help your team members. Say you do import multiple mail DAT files. Only the latest revision will be available for the team to submit to the gateway. So that's a huge deal in that no one can grab the wrong file and submit it. Again, in talking with people, we find out that, believe it or not, people are still having problems with keeping barcodes unique, whether it's at the tray or the pallet level. We can help you with that too. So in program settings and setup, you can overwrite those tray and pallet barcodes. This in program setup is also very important, registering the piece barcodes. This is critical for the undocumented that Monica had talked about. And I'm going to show you how all of this ties together. Logging all of those piece barcodes, again, gets logged in the SQL database. That may not mean anything to you because it is kind of techy. I'll admit sometimes I don't get it either, but you know, I don't have to. I know that it works. I know that the information is there when I need it, and that's all I have to know. So when those piece tray and pallet barcodes are being logged, it becomes a very powerful tool, and that you can use WB Scan. So picture, I'm all about trying to paint a picture. Out on the production floor, depending on how you implement this, because it's all about discipline, right? Where you choose to do these scans, very flexible in how you choose to use it in your environment. So scanning at the piece level, if this message, so for those of you that can't see it too well, there are no records in DB that match given criterion. This could mean something as simple as the job has been pre-sorted, but just hasn't made it into DAT mail yet, hasn't been imported. So the person who does the scan can bring this to someone's attention and say, hey, where is it? The other example would be inkjet file is on the floor. Job has been resorted, so now there's a whole new set of IMDs on the production floor. The office team has a mail DAT, and they assume that that file is correct and accurate. So in these super busy times, and I can just imagine election season was probably insane for many of you, that the office team assumes they have the correct mail DAT. The production floor assumes they have the correct information. The office staff uploads the mail DAT. Production continues to produce pieces and it goes out. Well, guess what? You've just created a huge undocumented situation. So having the ability to do these scans, again, at either the piece, the tray, or the pallet is really very important. The tray tag. I used to use this as an example, with kind of a giggle. But lately, talking with more and more of our clients, the giggle is more of a reality, and that tray tag falls out of the sleeve. You've got a tray tag laying on the production floor. So with WB Scan, you can now pick that tray tag up, and it tells you the job, the pallet, every particular about that tray tag and how you can put it back into that tray. So it'll even show you whether it's been paid, ready to pay, not closed. So all of this is pretty critical information. DAT pre-check. Maybe you have someone new in pre-sort, or you get files from an outside source. How do you confirm that the information is correct and accurate? So DAT pre-check in the very beginning of the process, mail DAT file gets bumped up against the gateway, and within 10 minutes, maybe less, you get a report like this. So this one report now checks several of those boxes that Monica was talking about. Mid, CRID, by for. You've got it all in one report, and most importantly, the STID. Nothing worse than assuming everything is correct. You're in production, a couple thousand pieces into a job, and you realize that the STID is wrong. What do? You're either going to throw it out and start all over, or you're going to let it go and then have those underlying issues afterward. So the IV MTR, again, previously just said that we get to talk with a lot of people, and so many folks aren't even aware that they have access to this information out on the gateway. So the Informed Visibility Mail Tracking Report. On the gateway, there's an option that you would select to have access to this information. Within DAT Mail, there's a certain way that you would want to generate this report so it's compatible to work with DAT Mail and that SQL database I was talking to you about. So the IV MTR report, once you have requested and have been approved to receive the report, and you're using DAT Mail, let me come here. Under the help, get support, documentation and videos, there's actually a guide that shows you how to set up that IVMTR report. Then here under reports, undocumented piece audit report. The IV MTR report gets imported here, creates the export, and that export looks like this. This would now help you to dispute some of those undocumented on your scorecard. And doing all of this, right, seamless is going to be a reality. Though it's a few months out, if you procrastinate that few months out, all of a sudden it's going to be right around the corner and you're going to go, uh-oh, what do I do? So take advantage of all of these offerings that you have at your disposal now. It's best to do this now when you have the ability to put some habit changes into place, because though this can help you dispute those, it can also expose where there might be some problems. So exposing those problem areas now before you go live into full seamless is definitely to your advantage. I'm going to cancel out of here.
Hey, Mary, can you show the summary for that report? Do you have that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because I think that's important. That report that you pulled up, that's all the detail which you would need if you're going to provide some documentation to the Postal Service. But I think what's best about this report, or about that whole process, is that we give you this summary report that really kind of shows you where those errors are occurring. So it's easier for you to go back and pinpoint which job it occurred in and what possibly might be causing those errors to take place. So to me, yes, that detail is important for you to have if you need to document something to the Postal Service, but that summary report is really the gold, I think, there, that makes it easy for people to use all that detail.
Exactly. So thanks, Monica. You always rein me in, and I appreciate that. But this is where I was talking about the exposure. So though that Excel report is great in helping to dispute a potential assessment, this report could expose those problem areas. And this is why I say taking care of all of this and putting these improvement practices into place now while you're in parallel makes that transition so much easier. So there's been a lot of thought given to how you can be proactive, reactive through the entire process. Now, as far as the by for errors that Monica was also talking about, I'm going to show you here what that looks like, and that we have something in place for that as well. And let's see, we'll just grab a nice small job here. Part of the solution is Postal Web Connector as far as uploading jobs automatically to the gateway. Since this is about improving your scorecard, I didn't really get into this, but the connector automatically uploads the jobs to the gateway. And with that, we're pulling vital information back for you. And some of that vital information is right here. So anything specific about your job comes back, and you would have access to it from the gateway. So anything that's available on the gateway is right here. So by for, CRIDs, MIDs, permits, nonprofit authorization numbers. This means you don't have to keep logging into the gateway to try to find this information. It's all delivered to you. This is about your jobs and only your jobs, live data from the gateway. I don't know if I've got one in here, an example. I don't. That if something were not valid anymore, it would be grayed out, it would be italicized, so you know that that particular nonprofit is no longer valid, or that information. So that's all critical. Oh, and Monica, I almost forgot. You were talking about USPS information. For those of you that do not have the scheduler set up, definitely reach out. Monica's going to give you that contact information at the end of this. The scheduler updates all of these, the redirect, the label list, all of those USPS files for you automatically. And you have visibility to what that looks like here. So for instance, NDC Springfield, on the right-hand side, these are all the zip codes at the NDC services. Down here at the bottom are your redirects. And just a little added bonus, so if you needed specifics about this facility, when you have it highlighted, and down here you click on View, it brings up all of the phone numbers, the type of truck that facility handles, right down to being able to give you directions to the facility. So again, all of this is available to you within Dat Mail. If you're not sure how to access it, what to do, again, reach out. Monica's going to give you that information. So at this point, we've covered the STIDs, the undocumented, by for, e-induction. We've covered pretty much everything. So I'm going to turn it back over to Monica now for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mary. That's a great high-level look at that. We really appreciate that. So there's a few highlights to take away from today's webinar. One, that it's critical to monitor your Mailer Scorecard, and you really need to do that daily to become familiar with those reports, familiar with the data, and to spot trends. And that continues even once you're successfully into seamless acceptance. You need to be keeping that monitoring process going, because things can happen and hiccups can take place that would cause errors. So you do need to keep monitoring that on an ongoing basis. And you want to use that Mailer Scorecard data to your advantage. So you want to use it proactively, not just as penalty information, but to improve your processes and improve the quality in your mailing operation. And take advantage of the lots of available tools to help you catch potential issues, and hopefully you catch them before you go into production or before your mailings are submitted. And of course, there's tools to efficiently monitor your Mailer Scorecard data, as we showed you. And you also need to put some tools into place to help you diagnose and research and document errors, mailings with errors, so that you can successfully dispute any assessments, even those that are issued in error. Because keep in mind, again, the errors could be on the Postal Service's side, or it could be mailings that weren't even processed by you. Maybe somebody fat-fingered and inadvertently used your MID or CRID, which does happen. And I'll just put another, I guess, highlight on that IV MTR data. It's very important that you get that data on a routine basis. They only keep it up there, I think, for about 7 days. Mary, I don't know if you know what the actual time frame is, but they
7 days.
Yep, it's only up there for a small amount of time. So really what you need to do is you need to put something in place that allows you to, and hopefully automatically, but if not, to go there and download it manually, do that on a routine basis so that you have that information, because once it's gone, then you're not able to get that. And that information is what you should be storing in tables. And again, it is a process. It's some work to set this up, but we can help you, give you some guidance on how to do that. That is vital, because if you have to dispute something, particularly undocumented pieces, that information is what you're going to need. So definitely do highlight that as a process that you need to put in place. And of course, we can help you with all of this. And, we've given you a high-level look at a lot of these tools, but the best way for you to experience this and how it might help you in your organization is to take advantage of our mailing optimization analysis session. That's a 60-minute session with one of our software experts, and we like to use your own mail.dat files when we do that, so that you can see exactly how these tools would work in your mailing operation. So please do take advantage of that. It's completely free, and you can do that in a number of ways. You can go to our website at windowbook.com/MOA for mailing optimization analysis. And you just fill out a brief form, just a couple of fields that you fill out, and that'll give us a message, and we'll go ahead and get you scheduled for that. Or you can also call us on our toll-free line, which is 800-524-0380, and ask to be scheduled for your mailing optimization analysis session. Or you can do that same thing by sending us an email to sales@windowbook.com. All right, at this point, we're going to open it up for any questions that people have on what we've presented today. And just a quick
Monica, I was just going to throw something in here because it just dawned on me with this whole undocumented. I actually worked with a client yesterday, and they did have an assessment, and it was a couple $100,000, but
wow.
Because they had the right tools in place, because as I had mentioned, right, political season was just ridiculously crazy for a lot of clients. And because all of these tools that we have were in place, they were able to have the successful submission, use WB scan to confirm and validate that that mail DAT file was in fact in DAT mail. Then they had the submission that they could give to Gateway and say, nope, here it is. So they were really able to apply everything and hopefully dispute quite a bit of that assessment.
That is a great case study. Mary, thanks for bringing that up. All right, so if there's any questions that people have, again, refresher how to submit those. You can either click on that raise hand icon. We'll unmute you so you can ask your question. Or you can type your question into the questions area, click that send button, and then we'll read and respond to your questions. So go ahead and submit those questions. While you're doing that, I'll take a look and see what we've got out here for questions. And don't be shy. Take advantage of the expertise that you've got on the line today. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, here's a question about, this happens to be about the seamless incentive. We didn't really talk about that today, but I'm happy to answer that question. So how is that seamless incentive going to work that's being proposed? Thank you for that question. That is a great question. Again, it's just a proposal at this time. Hopefully by next by next week sometime, we're hoping that the Postal Regulatory Commission will have submitted their approval for the proposed prices that the Postal Service submitted. So hopefully we'll have news on that. But right now it is a proposal. They've proposed 1/10 of a cent per piece for any full service mailings that are submitted under seamless acceptance. It's not actually a postage discount, but rather it's an incentive. And the way that that is going to work is it will be, the incentive will go to the EDOC submitter. So it's usually the mail service provider that would receive that incentive. And that money will be placed into their permit account. So you do have to register to participate in this, and you have to have an enterprise payment system or EPS permit account. So those are some other things that you'll want to arrange for if you don't already have those in place in order for you to get that incentive. And that will be effective when the rest of the prices go into effect on January 24th of 2021. So even though the seamless mandate isn't until May and July, those deadlines, you probably want to get ready sooner than that so that you can take advantage of that incentive. Thanks for that question. Another reason to get your Mailer Scorecard in shape because you'll want to be ready to take advantage of those incentives when those become available in January. Good question. Okay, here's another question. It's like, how do we get help if we don't understand what the Mailer Scorecard? It's pretty overwhelming. That is another great question, and you're right. There's just a ton of data out there in those Mailer Scorecard reports, and they can be confusing, to say the least. That again is one reason why we suggest that you look at them every day, and we know that's an extra process that's in your busy schedule. But if you don't understand the data that's in there and what it's telling you, then you're going to be kind of behind the eight ball, because that data is there for you. It's there for you to take advantage of. So you really do want to take a look at it and get familiar with it. So one thing that you can do is work with the Postal Service. They do have some guides to the Mailer Scorecard. That's on the Postal Pro website. You can also contact Postal One and ask them any questions that you have. And you can also reach out to your software vendors, such as WindowBook, or if you're pre-sort software vendors. We usually have some insight on what those Mailer Scorecard reports are and what the data in there is telling you. So if you have questions, or you're not sure what it is you're looking at, or if it's something that you need to be concerned about, we can help. Maybe some of your other software providers, including your pre-sort vendors, can help, and certainly the Postal Service. So don't be intimidated by it. It is a lot of data, but there are people that can help you to understand it. So please do reach out to the Postal Service and your software vendors to get that help. Anything to add on any of those questions, Mary?
Monica, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. All right, looks like, let me just double check, make sure that we don't have any questions or raised hands that we're missing here. And if you do happen to think of something that occurs to you after the webinar, that happens to me all the time, just send us an email to postalspecialist@windowbook.com. We'd be happy to answer your question. And we also want to remind you about all of our free educational resources that we provide. These webinars are just one example of those resources. But speaking of webinars, here's where you will find those recordings: windowbook.com/recorded webinars. This one will take a day or two to get posted, but you can check out any of our previously recorded webinars there. Also out on our website, we have our schedule for upcoming webinars. I think we've got things booked through the beginning of December, so check that out and see what we've got coming up that might be of interest. We also have a number of informative white papers on some mailing industry topics. If you want more detailed information, you can download those. And if you don't already receive our weekly Postal Concierge e-tip, you might want to sign up for that. That's a subscription-based service. Again, it's completely free, doesn't cost anything, but you do need to subscribe in order for us to be able to send you those emails every week. So please do take advantage of that. And we also want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know this is the height of busy mailing season for most mailers, and we greatly appreciate that you took some time out of your schedules to be with us today, and we hope that you enjoyed it and found it informative. And we certainly look forward to seeing you again, either on a mailing optimization analysis session or on another webinar. Again, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, and stay safe, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.